So, despite the relative youth of this channel, I've been doing work around YouTube for almost a decade now. Between 2015 and 2017, I partnered with the Game Theorists to create a documentary series called Breakdown. Most of those episodes haven't really found a home since then, either because of their lackluster quality or just not really fitting with anything. But I decided that they would make a good fit for this channel. So what you're about to watch is a remastered version of one of those videos. The audio quality and presentation style is going to be different than what is normally uploaded here, but the information is accurate and I am proud of the work done on it for my skill level at the time. If you enjoyed this, please consider leaving a like and subscribing for more. I'd love to do more development documentaries and real-life lore like this. Alright, so enjoy! Sometimes a dangerous idea, one that takes risks without any certainty of returns, is the best idea. In gaming, there is no more obvious an example of this than the Super Smash Bros. Franchise, a concept so insane that its creators toiled away on the first prototypes in secret. But that risk paid off, and the resulting product would become one of the most popular and influential fighting games ever developed. In the late 1990s, after the success of his Kirby franchise, Masahiro Sakurai wished to move in a different direction, to create something new. A fan of fighting games, Sakurai wished to contribute to the genre, somehow changing it up and crafting something unique. He didn't want to make just another fighting game. Instead of focusing on attacking and damaging your enemy to the point of reducing their health points to zero, Sakurai instead thought it may be more interesting to try to push your opponent out of the fighting arena, an idea obviously borrowed from Japanese sumo wrestling. Sakurai approached his superior Satoru Iwata, then president of HAL Laboratory, with his idea, who was intrigued and greenlit it, telling Sakurai that he should begin working on the project immediately. Development on the new game began in either late 1997 or early 1998, with a team of just 3. Sakurai on planning, specs, design, modeling, and movement, Iwata himself on programming, and a third unnamed developer working on sound. Early production was low-key, with Iwata only working on it during his breaks and weekends. They would later liken this period to the days of early NES development. As production continued, more of the title's unique battle system took shape. Sakurai wanted to create a game that supported anywhere between 2 and 4 fighters in various different configurations, as opposed to strictly adhering to the standard of one-on-one battles. Before an official codename was chosen, this combat system earned the title its first exceedingly clever nickname, 4-Player Battle Royale. Eventually, a crude prototype was completed under the name Kakudo Gimo Ryo, or Dragon King the Fighting Game, a name chosen in honor of the Ryocho neighborhood in the Yamanashi Prefecture where HAL's headquarters was located. The plan was for this title to ultimately include an entire cast of original characters, but this initial prototype featured very basic models in place of any actual fighters. Sakurai encountered great difficulty when creating characters for the game because he wanted it to feature a very clear and concise atmosphere. He believed that it was okay for fighting games in arcades to be disorganized, because players were there to fight and did not expect a clear reason to. On home consoles, however, he believed that players had come to expect reasonable scenarios in their games, so a normal fighting game wouldn't be enough. So, to circumvent this problem, Sakurai desired to use Nintendo's pre-developed characters and icons as fighters, so players would immediately know what they were getting into. Fearful that the team would not get approval to use Nintendo's IPs, Sakurai did not seek permission, and instead moved forward in secret with a demo featuring Mario, Donkey Kong, Fox McCloud, and Samus Aran. After presenting this demo to Nintendo of Japan, there were those within the company still reluctant to allow development to continue, but Sakurai eventually got his way, and Super Smash Bros., as it came to be known, was officially given the green light. Characters were pulled from all corners of Nintendo's library, given fighting moves inspired by their games, and placed onto battlefields ripped directly from Nintendo's universes. Even several in-game items and weapons were taken and placed into the title, allowing for some interesting and eclectic combinations. The title was released in Japan on January 21st, 1999, and though it may be hard to believe today, Super Smash Bros. Was originally meant only for release in Japan. Thankfully, however, the title was a massive hit on the Japanese market, selling nearly 2 million copies, which prompted Nintendo to localize the game for various international markets. In North America, Super Smash Bros. Was released on April 26, 1999, where it sold an additional 2.93 million copies. But this was just the beginning, because Super Smash Bros. Laid the groundwork for what would become one of the most influential fighting games of all time. Its sequel, Super Smash Bros. Melee. Almost immediately after its release on the N64, Sakurai and Hal began development on a sequel for Nintendo's next console, the GameCube, and it was decided early on to include features impossible to implement on the N64. The most obvious of these was a complex opening cinematic, created mostly to show off the advanced graphical capabilities of the GameCube compared to the N64. Nintendo worked with 3 different graphical developers in Tokyo to create this cutscene. Melee had a development cycle of just 13 months, an incredibly short amount of time comparatively in the industry. Sakurai described his lifestyle during the development of this title as self-destructive, saying that he took no holidays and had short weekends. He later recalled, "During parts of it, I was living a really destructive lifestyle. I'd work for over 40 hours in a row, then go back home and sleep for 4. He also described Melee as the biggest project he'd undertaken and led up until this point, and as a result he felt a great pressure to deliver a solid, quality product, whereas the original Smash Bros. Was just an experiment. Regardless of this enormous amount of pressure and short development cycle, Sakurai would later describe Melee as the sharpest game in the series. The game's roster was more than double the size of its predecessor, with all 12 characters from Super Smash Bros. Making a return. Initially, the development team also considered replacing Earthbound's Ness with Mother 3's Lucas. Ness was only kept in Melee because of the numerous delays of Mother 3. Marth and Roy from the Fire Emblem series were also selected for inclusion despite hailing from a Japanese exclusive franchise. Some developers within Nintendo considered cutting them from the international release of Melee, but Sakurai pushed hard to keep Marth in the game because he thought the character was just fun to play as. Eventually, Nintendo relented and allowed for Roy's international inclusion as well. Their presence in Melee single-handedly sparked an interest in the Fire Emblem games overseas, leading to international localizations for the franchise. Interestingly, Roy's first appearance in any video game was in Melee. His Fire Emblem title, Binding Blade, was not released until March of 2002. Sakurai's friend and colleague Hideo Kojima also requested that his character Solid Snake be included, but Melee's development was too far along to make this feasible. Snake's inclusion in the roster of Melee's sequel, Super Smash Bros. Brawl, was a surprise announcement when that game was later revealed. With this sequel, the development team sought to address one of Smash Bros.' biggest criticisms, its lackluster single-player. As a result, Melee offered a pseudo-platformer adventure mode, several contests and challenges, and even themed event matches, which required players to win a fight while also fulfilling miscellaneous criteria. Melee also included collectible trophies of various characters, locations, and items from Nintendo's many franchises. Despite a few rough edges as a result of its absurdly short development cycle, Super Smash Bros. Received near universal acclaim upon release, and would end up selling a total of more than 7 million units worldwide, making it the most popular GameCube game ever created. The Super Smash Bros. Series is a story of unlikelihoods. From the beginning, no one believed this series would be a success, and its development was kept secret from even Nintendo themselves. It is perhaps a little ironic that it has become arguably one of Nintendo's most successful, anticipated, and cherished IPs, growing far beyond even what creator Masahiro Sakurai envisioned. To this day, Melee remains one of the most popular competitive fighting games in the world, despite years of reluctance from its developers and publisher to embrace this identity. Tournaments regularly draw in hundreds of fighters from around the world and tens of thousands of viewers online. EVO 2016 was the largest Smash tournament in the history of competitive Melee to date, with thousands of entrants and a streaming audience of hundreds of thousands. A feat that would have been unbelievable for Sakurai and Iwata as they toiled away on Super Smash Bros. In their free time. Hey, thanks for watching. I loved making these sort of documentary retrospectives, and would love to add them to the rotation of lore, explanation, Easter eggs, and cut content videos. If I end up doing that, what sort of documentaries would you like to see? And again, if you enjoyed this, please remember to like the video and subscribe so we may please the algorithm gods. At least that's what it feels like we're doing these days, doesn't it? Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.